It's the Final Word Daily. Adam Collins and Geoff Lemon sat in a backyard in Sydney about, 7 kilometres from the SCG ahead of the third test match between Australia and Pakistan for cbusuper.com.au. You've been at the ground today.
5.5.
5.5. I've not been there, you have. Why don't you give us a 30-second summary of the press conferences to start?
Okay. Pat Cummins, 15 questions about David Warner, 11 questions not about David Warner at Pat Cummins' press conference, so that gives you a sense of how things were going. And Shan, Masood, obviously a fair bit of argument behind the scenes with the rest of the team administration about what the makeup of the 11 was, didn't have one for us, and then they put it out about 3 hours later. Interesting day. It was curious. So if I double back on that, the Pat Cummins presser was pretty standard. It was pretty, just standing on the boundary line. Cummins doing that thing that he does. So 30 seconds is over, by the way. I'm just freewheeling from here. Just being very nondescript. He's very good at just giving minimal answers without seeming rude, but he just doesn't give a whole lot. Like he's got quite.
He can do both, can't he? He can do the short, sharp answer, move to the next question without being rude. And he can also give the quite expansive, thoughtful, detailed, knows he's giving a newsline answer when he's in that kind of mood as well. He can kind of shift gears quite nicely.
Which he did in terms of Warner when he obviously got asked questions about how you'll remember him and what you'll miss and that kind of thing. And so he did give some longer answers there. But then and then the Shan Masood one. So initially, this is quite boring stuff in a way, but it's also kind of interesting in a way. So it was due for 12:40. They sent a message up to say, well, we might be 5 or 10 minutes late. So everybody troops down there 5 or 10 minutes afterwards, and then we sit around there for about another 40 minutes waiting for them to come in. So there's no message to say we're going to be 40 minutes late. There's just a message to say 5 or 10. Then he comes in, and last time in Melbourne he gave an 11 immediately at that point, and this time he said, well, we don't have one yet, we're not sure. And so I think you can read between the lines that there was a fair bit of discussion back and forth about what the makeup should be, whether they should take a punt on playing Abra Ahmed, the leg spinner, who is dear to our hearts already. He's played 6 tests, 38 wickets, and gone for a shitload of runs.
Like his average and strike rate are quite fine because he's taken enough wickets to. I think he was Pakistan's leading wicket taker in Test cricket this year with 15, which says more about how little Test cricket they've played. And all his numbers look fine until you dig a bit deeper and you realise he's bowled. He's had so many sort of 4 for 120s in a short career.
He's got
Titch
200 plus in there. He's got 200. He's got the 6 for 120 odd the 7 for, wasn't it?
On debut,
120, 140. On debut as well, leg spinner, rips it, has variation deliveries as well, exciting, but he's got this injury issue and they just weren't confident that he would get through a full test match, but I think that's what a lot of the back and forth was about, was whether do we risk it, do we play him? So Sajid Khan will play instead the off spinner. There's this kind of delusion that Sydney's still a spinning pitch. I still don't understand it. They were like, well, we had Abra earmarked that we had to get him to play in Sydney because this is what Shan Masood was saying, because it spins here. It doesn't spin. I mean, a little bit, but it's not what it was. Like, it's just a road. It's just a runs wicket.
Well, it's an average. The average runs per wicket at the SCG is higher than anywhere in the country over the last 5 years.
Yeah.
But
and
in a way, it's
last 20. I reckon you go back pretty much this century. It's been. I counted 26 innings where teams have made 400 or more in Sydney this century. So in the last 24 years.
Yeah, I would say that it has given something to spinners, but not in a disproportionate kind of way. More because it's like the last test in the run, and thus we're deeper into the season. Usually more traffic on the pitch. It's a square that's not a drop-in square as well, which I think feeds into that over the years that we've thought that a natural pitch is more likely to take the spin. Similar to how we thought Adelaide would do that for a long time until they had drop-ins and the complexion there's changed. The big days out for bowlers in Shield cricket at Sydney, though, in the last couple of seasons have been when there's been extra grass left on and it's been the seamers running amok. So I know Australia played.
There is a bit. It's a greenish pitch, but I mean my suspicion is that it's going to play like these ones often do, where it's green for about 3 hours, then it dries off, and then it doesn't do much. I may be wrong, but we've been burned before by this kind of wickets in Sydney.
The one caveat to all of this, or the one extra piece of information, is that the test match, 4 of the last 5 test matches here have been draws. 3 of them have been rain-affected draws. So we're, with the exception of 2021, when India did a sterling job on the final day, initially chasing and then saving in that pivotal test match of the Border Gavaskar series. It's been more that test matches, like last year's, I think there was about 180 overs in the whole match or something like that, because rain got the better of them. So, and last year, Hazelwood was the best of the bowlers. Australia played 2 spinners. It's a good quiz question. Who was Australia's second spinner at the SCG last year? Ashton Agar. That's right. Ding, ding.
About 3 overs.
Well, he bowled about 15
maybe,
across the test, but he went wicketless. And he bowled, no, he did well enough to give the sense that he might go okay in India as the Akshar Patel option, but as he's gone on to explain later, his action fell apart in India, and the rest is history as far as his red ball hopes are concerned, with Todd Murphy getting in there and doing it as he did. But there's been no talk of Todd Murphy, nor anyone else for that matter. Cameron Green had an impressive net yesterday by all reports and wasn't considered. Same 11, they're going to back the side that's won the last 2 weeks. I think that's pretty fair because let's be realistic. Let's be completely honest with ourselves and each other. They're not playing the same 11 against the Windies, right? We all know this. Against the Windies, there will be an opportunity for Hazelwood to miss a test, for Stark to miss a test, for Bowen to play a test, for Lance Morris to play a test. That is almost certainly how that's going to play out because they've got 2 against New Zealand coming up at the back of the run, some white ball stuff in between.
Because they've got about 8 days between Sydney and Adelaide. I don't think any of those bowlers are going to...
I don't think it's about that. I think it's going to be here's the chance we have to blood Morris and here's the chance we have to give Boland an opportunity. Just to keep him warm and keep him in frame. I just don't see them playing the whole way through. Anyway,
it's Cummins today said that would be... He said it might not be likely that we're able to do it, but it would be nice to be able to do it. Play the same way.
I just think that, and look, they deserve to play together as a group. There's no reason why they should be missing test matches. It's more that I think they'll take bigger picture with Morris and go, wouldn't it be good to give him an opportunity to bowl at a number of probable debutants? And Boland, it's more like a service award. Like you've been with the squad so often and you bowled so well in the World Test Championship final and everything that led up to that. And anyway, I might be wrong, but my gut is
who don't get the service award.
Yeah, it's my gut is they'll play him. They've got Boland on a very strict regime of how much he bowls in Shield cricket and so on in order to get him a test match this summer. So we will see.
You would have enjoyed this today, the kind of press box chat between a few of our colleagues going, is anybody going to write the 2 spinners yarn? Any 2 spinners? Anyone going to write a 2 spinner story? Will they play 2 spinners? And everyone was like, nah. We're not going to, there's no point.
There's no second spinner in the squad
because
they didn't bring Murphy in.
A second spinner story,
but they normally bring a second spinner into the. Swepson's been brought into the Sydney squad after Melbourne about 9 years in a row, and of course Agar we mentioned already, and Steve O'Keefe for a couple of years before that. Steve O'Keefe played this corresponding fixture back in 2017. I forgot about that. This was he played 2 years in a row.
This is where the glow sticks.
I reckon that was the Windies. I reckon that was the year before. Brief, a short test match where.
Oh, that was in Brisbane.
O'Keefe, no. Remember in Sydney the previous year they played the Windies. It was a horribly rain-affected test match. And I think that's where we first started doing the revolver stuff. But O'Keefe bowled really well on the final day of that test and it fed him in nicely to dominate as he did in Pune about a month later. But yeah, the second spinner thing, not to be this year. Usman Khawaja, since his 100, since the start of the test match here in 2018, where he made 170-something, he's averaged 212 on this ground. 400s in his last 4 test matches here, because 2 of them were twin tons. He missed out against India in 2019. So Usman's record here is unbelievable. Still a fair bit of news around with Khawaja this week. We learnt more about his submission to the ICC last week, what it cited within it. There was an emergency Cricket Australia board meeting to go through the whys and wherefores of that. So that's still ticking over in the background. What we haven't discussed yet, Geoff, in this podcast, and we probably should, is David Warner is playing his final test match this week and has announced his retirement from one-day cricket in quite a shrewd way. He said that, I'm not going to be available for one-day cricket. I formally retire, but if you want to bring me back to play in the Champions Trophy, available if selected, which is going to piss some people off because that's just the way things are with David Warner. But from his viewpoint, he wants to go full-time T20 circuit. This enables him to do so. He's not taking a national contract next year. He'll have one up until the T20 World Cup, which is fair enough. He's played plenty of international cricket on this contract cycle. He's entitled to retire. That he might come back as a non-contracted player in 2025. I can't see it happening because they'll, by that stage, be preparing for their World Cup defence in 2027. They'll want to move on from Warner, but it's a nice to have in the back pocket.
Cummins pretty much quashed it today at his presser. He said that the point will be to look to the future.
Exactly.
And give some other guys a go. But he said it might be a break glass in case of an emergency thing.
Yeah.
If they really need someone, which I don't think they will. I mean, generally in 50 over cricket, that's where people are queuing up for the opening spots, right? That's it, in a sense. I guess it can be difficult, but a lot of the time it's the easiest place to bat.
It's
go
true.
Out, face the new ball, hit over the top. The best players in your 50 over team all want to open the batting, even if they're not openers in the other formats, like Mitch Marsh has done successfully, like they would like to see Cameron Green doing.
Or Travis Head
in the T20 format as well. Yeah, exactly. So I think that's the easiest spot to fill in a lot of ways in 50 over cricket.
Oh, you're totally right, but they're not going to play a lot of 50 over cricket is the point, I guess. So we might get to the Champions Trophy cycle and they might have played another, I don't know, let's pick a number, 10 one-dayers, and they may not have quite bedded it down yet. Warner might be dominating in the IPL or something. Oh, I don't know, Dave, how do you feel about... You can see a world where it happens. I doubt it. I doubt it. But still, Warner making that statement yesterday that he was finishing up in that format, and he gave a really good press conference about a whole number of issues about his emotion around Khawaja and the two of them playing rep cricket together from age 10 and having met when they were 6-year-old boys when their brothers were playing cricket against each other, which is a really nice story, about Phil Hughes, discussing how he feels like Hughes would have been the one that went on to have the long test career, not necessarily him or Khawaja. He was the one they saw as being the superstar all-time opener. And just reflecting on the sadness of that the tragedy of that nearly a decade later, remembering that Warner was, out there with Hughes as he was hit. I mean, it's a horrible thing for anyone to go through, but that's a part of Warner's story too.
Yeah, and it has always been when he comes back to the SCG as well. That's the place where it happened. There is that extra layer of symbolism. He's still. The cameras were on it the first year that it happened, but no, he still does it every time Sims touches the plaque because he comes out to bat, that sort of thing.
Well, he kissed the turf, didn't he, when he was on 63, that first test match back where he was felled. I mean, it's this stuff's... this generation of Australian cricketers, especially the guys that play for New South Wales and South Australia, they carry it around with them every week, and I'm not surprised that Warner wanted to talk about this yesterday.
Yeah, because you would think about it. You would think about the sliding doors situation. You'd think, he's got this emotional connection with Khawaja and with the fact that they have been able to have these last few years together. It's a really nice way to finish off too, after all of the chopping and changing of different openers and so on, who've come and gone over the time that Warner's been there, and he's been able to have this last hurrah, but he wouldn't be able to help thinking, well, it could and maybe should have been someone else. And
also that there's a world where Khawaja opens batting with Warner for the last 10 years as well, isn't there? Well, probably in the post-Rogers era, but they didn't quite get that right with Khawaja, and it's taken him to this point where he's, as I mentioned before, had this extraordinary run since returning to the Test side 2 years ago. He's made nearly 2,500 runs at 60. It's a crazy set of numbers, and I know it was an unusual set of circumstances that saw him back, but making the very most of it. Geoff, we might take a pause and then return from our break by talking about a change at the top of the order for Pakistan. Final word daily, day before the Sydney Test. Adam Collins and Geoff Lemon is brought to you by CBUS Super, and we made 284 episodes of the Final Word last year, Geoff. 284 of them, and I think we worked out the better part of 7 million downloads and views or something ridiculous like that. They're big numbers, right? We're very proud of what we've done through this stretch of time. This is episode number 1 of the new year.
Number 1.
And the new year that is with CBUS Super, who are celebrating year number 40 of what they do. Okay. So we're pretty pumped.
40 times 1.
Exactly. Well, what I was getting to was that we're pretty excited that we've been doing it. Geoff and I met 10 years ago this week in real life. So they were probably celebrating their 30th anniversary CBUS in a formal way in 2014. Well, in 2024, it's 10 years of the Final Word, 40 years of CBUS. It's meant to be.
Meant to be. Ryan Harris was about to head off to South Africa and do the thing on the one knee, and David Warner made the twin tons at Cape Town and all the rest of it. That was 2014. That was the start of 2014. It was a different world back then. It was a different time. So yes.
Numbers though, numbers though, 8.99% average return across the 40-year span. Don't have to say 39 years anymore. Can actually say the 40-year span of the default My Super account, which is the one that you get put into by default, as the name would suggest,
that is generally default.
as opposed to the myriad other options you've got when you're with CBUS Super. And
the two sweetest words in the English language.
Default. Well slotted in. Past performance not a reliable indicator of future performance, but bloody hell, what performance it's been for CBUS Super. Get involved, get your Super sorted out in 2024. Make it a New Year's resolution. I know. It's the sort of thing that sat on my to-do list for a long time, not having had that part of my life resolved. And when I sorted it out, I felt a lot better about myself. You do the same. Tell them we sent you from CBUS. Pakistan. You were at their press conference, and you said before they didn't name a side, then they did.
Yeah.
And they've a fairly big structural change at the top.
Well, it could be at the top. We don't know yet. This is the thing, because they put out an 11, but they listed a batting order. But I don't think that batting order's right. I don't know. I mean, what's your gut on this?
Well, he's opened. I mean, so the way this is. So let's just go through this from the start. So Zayeb's coming in to be the replacement for Imam.
Right. but not necessarily to open. So he's listed to open at the moment on the PCB.
I'm going to pull it out. I'm going to pull out the team list because we're doing this on the fly a little bit here, and I'd rather give you accurate information. So to go down the list, Saeem Ayub is debuting, according to the sheet, opening with Abdullah Shafiq, with Shan Masood at 3, Barbara Azam at 4, etc., etc. But the trick here, Amir Jamal's listed at 11.
Yes.
He's going to bat 8. So if Saeem Ayub...
Maybe, because Sajid Khan might bat 8. So
That's
Jamal
true.
might bat 9.
That's true.
So Sajid's in the off-spinner instead of Abra Ahmed, the leg spinner. But listed as an opener may not open because Shan Masood might go up to open.
Could. He's done it before.
And they might slot into the middle order, Saeem Ayub, because he's a very aggressive kind of player. They like him as a T20 ball striker, and that's where he's done most of his domestic cricket. He's played a few first-class games. He's made 3 first-class tons, but he's not the most experienced in that format, and they might not want to throw him to the Wolves as an opener. And Shan Masood's opened heaps, and he bats 3 anyway, so it's a summer a lot of the time. So if he can go up to open, and he was very determined, Shan Masood, to really. We've got 3 small children waving at us from the window.
They're having a great time.
And also we've got how did Slim get in there? He was out here before, and then
I don't know.
Magic.
Resourceful.
The point being that if Shan Masood's got to set the tone, and he was speaking about it in his presser. He's like, we've got to score quickly enough that we can put pressure on Australia. That's an important thing to be able to do. What better way to do that than to go and open the batting himself and show how it's done from the start. So that's
the other side of it is that Saeem has a reputation as a white ball player. Hit a 6 to win the CPL this year. That's a random thing for a young Pakistani to do, to play in a T20 league and hit a 6 to win the comp. But I suppose that indicates, from the good oil from those who watched that tournament, is this guy's an absolute gun. He's also had a really good first class season in Karachi, so there is signs. I don't mind it. Imam, I feel for a little bit. I don't think he's given himself the best chance to succeed. A guy who's got 9 one-day hundreds and a really strong set of one-day numbers, and not allowed himself to play with the freedom. Yeah, not giving himself the chance to play with the freedom. He averages 16 in Australia across about 5 test matches now, or 4. That would have been his 4th. So I get why they've dispensed with him and left him be for the time being. He's got a much better record at home.
He's only 27 as well. It feels like he's been around for years, but he's not that old.
Yeah, his debut was that Irish test match when he knocked himself out. That's 5 years ago, for 5.5 years ago. So, but yeah, Shaheen Sharafredi, I'm not sure why Shaheen's not playing.
I think he's just sore. I think he's bowled 100 plus overs across the series.
Yeah.
And he did look like he was warming up more and more into form as he got through that Melbourne test. He looked better as the test went on.
It's a shame though, because he takes 6 wickets last week, and it's the first time he's had a real influence on a test match in Australia. He was taking his wickets in 2023 at an average of 50. That comes down to 39 in the space of one test, and maybe he starts 2024 well, remembering this is the ground where Pakistan have won 2 of their 4 tests in Australia, one in 1977 where Imran took 12 wickets in the match, and one in 1995, their most recent in this country, when Mushtaq Ahmed took 9 in the match and Ijaz Ahmed made a big 100. So these are names that go way back into history now. There's no link to the current team. There's no,
Basically, they've got the quicks who are left. So they've got Hassan Ali, they've got Hamza, and they've got Jamal. They're the only ones left standing at the end of the tour. I
guess that's right. All right, we'll try to again. We will. I promise you, we will be at the Sydney Cricket Ground. Yibbida. And we will be there every night for cbussuper.com.au. We will be talking a lot about David Warner, I suspect, and many other things as well. Let's hope the rain doesn't influence the test match too much. The forecast isn't crash hot, but
better than it was.
It's better than it was, and it's better than what the forecast was last year.
It has been at other times.
Yes, something about Sydney and rain at this time of year. Anyway, that's the way it goes. Let's do that tomorrow. Okay. I'm Adam Collins. He's Geoff Lemon. Catch you then.
Ciao.